Welcome to the Simply Pediatrics Podcast, simplifying holistic healthcare for infants and children. We're so glad you're here. Join Jennifer Zethner, holistic pediatric nurse practitioner and holistic mom of 3 on a mission. Listen in as she shares the answers to the most asked questions from parents in her practice every day and offers parents practical strategies and actionable steps to support their child's health and well-being. Enjoy this insightful episode of the Simply Pediatrics Podcast and stay tuned for more information at the end of the podcast.
Hi, I'm Jennie Zethner. That's right, I'm here in my car. I don't know about the rest of you, but I find sitting in my car to be very peaceful. It happens to be one of the quietest places I have in my life. I have 3 children. I work full time. I'm busy like the rest of you, and I really would like to share information, and doing it from my car is most convenient. So I'm going to ask you to please forgive if there's any commotion behind me, any beeping, any dogs barking, ambulances, fire trucks, etc. I'll do the best I can to find quiet places. I assure you I will never be driving my vehicle when I speak to you. I will always be pulled over and parked. I am typically parked waiting for one of my children to come out of an event or something. So that is what I'm doing with my time here. And I look forward to sharing information with you. And again, forgive me for being a little unprofessional being here in my car, but I hope it works. And with that, let's get started.
Today's episode, C-sections.
Hello and welcome. I'm so happy to be here with you today. Today we're going to be talking about C-sections. And I'd like to start this podcast off by first saying to any of you mamas out there who are watching this podcast, who had planned to have a natural delivery, a natural vaginal delivery with no medications, and you went through the labor and you did all the things and you ended up having a C-section. To you, I send a big, big hug. To all of you, I consider you warriors. You are a warrior because you had the best plans, the best intentions. You went through the work of the labor, the pain of the labor, and in the end, you ended up having to have a C-section, a surgical intervention, which in itself is, mama warrior work, right? To have a C-section and be opened up and then take care of your baby. So much. It's just so much. So to all of you, I send a hug. I know that our birthing plans, we lay them out and we hope for the best. So really this podcast is for you mamas out there who had intentions of having a vaginal delivery, ended up having a C-section. And to all my other mommies out there who are hoping to have a vaginal delivery, but maybe someone's speaking to you about a C-section, or maybe you're just planning on having one in general and you want more information. All right. So we know that there's a very high rate in the United States, especially of C-sections, and there's a variety of different reasons for that. Many of them are absolutely medically necessary. Others of them are perhaps the aggressive nature of a GYN and their decision to do a C-section. And then we have some moms who just opt to for a variety of other reasons. And then there's, of course, other women who have had C-sections in the past and aren't an option to deliver vaginally. So those are a variety of different reasons why we see C-sections. Let's start off by talking about why is it important to avoid a C-section? Why is it important that a baby travels through the vaginal canal and is delivered vaginally? And again, when I talk about having a vaginal delivery, some of you out there are all about having no medication, no intervention, and that's wonderful. But regardless of whether you have, some intervention to bring on the labor or you have an epidural to hold off some of the pain, delivering naturally in any of those ways is still really important. The reason why it's super important, one of the biggest reasons, is that when a baby passes through the vaginal canal, and this is going to sound gross, but when they pass through the vaginal canal, what happens is they're actually inoculated by all this good bacteria that live there naturally in that part of our body. So the baby passes through the vaginal canal and kind of gets inoculated. Their skin, their eyes, their mouth, they swallow that, material that they're passing through the vaginal canal. And all those good bacteria help to colonize their gut and their skin with the bacteria that they need to be optimally healthy. And this is why it's so important to be born vaginally. The other reason is that when babies pass through the vaginal canal, they're actually squeezed, and their bodies are squeezed out through that. And when they come out into the environment, they excrete out of their body a lot of the fluid, right? So they're traveling around in the amniotic fluid for those 9 months. So when they come out, they need to expel it out of their whole body, including their lungs. And so many times babies that are born C-section are also at a slightly higher risk of needing some respiratory intervention at birth because all that fluid didn't get released from the lungs. So those are like the two big reasons, is that the bacteria that they become in contact with is really important for our overall health when we are born. And also the actual squeezing that occurs through being born vaginally helps to open up the lungs. So those are the two main reasons, right? All right, so when we have an infant that ends up being born C-section, they miss out on those two opportunities. So what can we do to assist them with optimal health? So if your baby was born C-section, or you think that your baby will end up having to be born C-section, what can we do to optimize their health? So there are a few things. Hopefully you're planning on breastfeeding. So the first kind of pass of being exposed to all those good microbes at birth is through the vaginal canal, and then the second pass is through the breast milk. So hopefully you're planning on breastfeeding your baby. If you are, this is optimal, because then they'll get some of those good bacteria, helps to colonize the gut and assist them with optimal health. The other thing we can do for babies that are born C-section is to give them, or if their mom is, or if mommy is breastfeeding, give mom a probiotic. So a baby can benefit from an infant probiotic, which kind of replaces some of those bacteria that they did not get to be in contact with being born vaginally. So there's a variety of different infant probiotics. I can attach to this podcast some that I recommend, and you can also speak to your healthcare, your pediatric healthcare provider about a probiotic that would be optimal for your baby. The other thing you can speak about with your medical provider, with your OBGYN, is that if you think you're going to have a C-section or you're worried about one, speak with your OBGYN in advance about doing what's called vaginal seeding. So they actually take some of the secretions from the vaginal canal of mom and they inoculate the baby with that. And that's something you want to speak about with your OBGYN in advance, because they don't all do it. And also, if you don't know if you're going to have a C-section, you might want to have that conversation so that it's there just in case you end up having one. Some things that moms can do to prevent the risk of a C-section. So what we can do if you're pregnant right now to prevent having a C-section when you go into labor is taking a birthing class. Birthing classes, and I know I spoke about this in one of my other podcasts, have kind of like fallen off of the to-do list. Many of our OBGYNs just don't even recommend that moms go, and moms don't know that they're supposed to ask. So a birthing class is very important, very important. And statistically, if you take a birthing class, you are at lower risk of having a C-section because you are informed and you know what the steps are for labor and what to look for and how to breathe through it, and really helpful. So a birthing class, particularly I like the Bradley method. A Bradley method birthing class will teach moms and dads, or your partners, how to have a natural birth and what the steps are and what to look for. Another intervention you can include in your birthing plan is to have a doula. So a birthing doula will be there to assist you with every step of that birthing process. And also, statistically speaking, if you have a birthing doula, you are at a lower risk of having a C-section, again, because you have someone there to guide you in that process of a natural delivery. Statistically speaking, babies who are born C-section are at high risk for something called A to P. A to P is eczema, asthma, and allergies. And the reason why they're at risk for eczema, asthma, and allergies has a lot to do with their gut health at birth, like we just talked about. So that gut health at birth, being, passing through the vaginal canal, is so important that it does impact them for their whole life. So it's really important to try to avoid the C-section if you can. And if you cannot, support your baby by breastfeeding them and or starting them on a probiotic. So the stepwise that I take in my practice is I watch your infant. If you were born C-section, but you're breastfeeding your baby and the baby's moving along and seems to be doing well, I don't do anything. We leave everybody alone and see how it goes. But the very first signs of what I call decreased digestion, which to me, and this is going to vary from provider to provider, is not having bowel movements on a regular basis. I like to see 1 to 3 a day for my newborns, regardless of whether they're breastfed or bottle fed. I like to see a few because then we know that they're excreting their toxins on a regular basis. So we're looking at digestion and we're also looking at the skin health. So very early on, you can start to see signs of eczema. Babies get eczema, in that first 3 months of life, you can see that, some dry patches here and there. And that's the first sign of atopy. And again, C-section babies are at high risk for this. And the first step for this is to give them a probiotic. So please, if you're listening to this podcast and any of your children were born C-section and they have eczema, the first thing we're going to be looking at here is to help their gut. And we bring in a probiotic and we give it to the infants, and often we see the eczema go away. Sometimes we have to, involve mom's diet as well, but the first thing is really getting to that gut health with the probiotic. Now, if your baby was born C-section and you're not breastfeeding and you're also giving, and then you're giving them formula, those babies almost across the board, I'm giving them a probiotic because I know that their gut health isn't optimal. And now the formula can be tricky for them to break down. And pretty much almost across the board, if I have a baby born C-section and mommy is also giving formula, they're having some digestive issues. They're either constipated, they're having skin issues, or they're having some colic, and they need some help with some probiotics there. So certainly address that with your healthcare provider. Now, if you would have what I call like the trifecta, which is you had a baby born C-section with some complications and you ended up on antibiotics, or your baby ended up on antibiotics, which is also very common. And then you're also formula fed. So a baby C-section exposed to antibiotics and formula fed absolutely needs to be on a probiotic from the get-go. As soon as they're born, they need to be put on a probiotic. So please, if you are in one of those, and it's pretty common, moms out there, unfortunately, and again, I know most of you listening to this are hoping for like a natural delivery, but unfortunately, very common if you end up having a C-section, very commonly they're also put on an antibiotic for one reason or another. So we can fix this. We can, give that probiotic, assist with mom's diet as well. If you're breastfeeding, and if not, if you're giving the formula, we might have to switch the formula around. I have a whole other podcast about digestive health for our less than 1 infants that I would encourage you to watch if you're in that kind of place right now where you had a baby and they're having some digestive issues still and you don't know where to go. So certainly go back to that podcast to get some more information. All right, all my mamas out there who have either had your babies or are planning to have your baby soon, all the best to you. The best laid plans, right? Sometimes they go astray, and we have plans, and if things don't go the way that you want to, I hope this information was helpful. Again, it's just a quick snippet of information. Discuss the rest of it with your pediatric healthcare provider. Remember, parenting is a journey, and you're doing an amazing job. Stay curious and keep learning, and I'll see you next time.
Thank you for joining Jennie on the Simply Pediatrics Podcast. We hope that the valuable information she shared in this episode will inspire and empower you on your holistic parenting journey. If you would like to learn more about Jennie, her Simply Pediatrics practice, or anything that she spoke about today, please check the show notes that accompany this podcast and you'll find all the links and resources you need. You can also sign up for the Simply Pediatrics mailing list so that you receive Jennie's weekly newsletters packed with vital information and holistic parenting journeys. If you've enjoyed today's episode, please consider giving this page a like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any episodes. And don't forget to connect with us by sharing your thoughts in the comments section below. follow Simply Pediatrics on any and all of the social media platforms. And if you're interested in an in-person or a virtual appointment with Jennie, please see the contact details in the show notes. Stay tuned for more episodes packed with a wealth of powerful information to support you on your holistic parenting path. See you next time.